Gentlemen, Mr. Baldwin and Mr. Dammann, my co-hosts, how are you? You're on mute.
Fantastic.
Rick, how are you? That's you, Rick. Can you hear? Rick Baldwin. Yeah, in here. Sean, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I was worried my computer wasn't working for a minute. Anyway, fun stuff. We're here for our industry update. That was a goofy little timer video, but it was what I found when I typed in 5-minute timer in June. Here we go. So let's dive in. How's the end of May feel? Not necessarily look before we dive into numbers, but how's it feeling out there in the market, guys?
I don't see a whole lot of change in numbers right now, but you sense that there's just a tiny bit of slowdown in terms of showings and races to multiple offers.
Yeah, so I think that one of the newer themes is the properties that were getting the 10 and 15 multiple offers on them are now kind of getting 2 or 3, right? Yep. Is what I'm hearing out in the field, which I find to be a little bit of hope or good news if you've got those first-time home buyers that aren't cash heavy in your pipeline. Wouldn't you agree?
It'll certainly open it up to more people.
Yeah,
for sure.
Rick, what are you feeling?
Well, I think the demand is still really high and really strong. And my feeling on the number of multiple offers that are happening, I'm not so sure that that's a function of the demand. I think it's a function of sellers and listing agents pushing the price too high. And yeah. I think that the pushback is saying, okay, well, maybe there's not 10 new multiple offers, maybe there's 3. The demand is there. I don't think it's being triggered by a slowdown of demand. I think it's that a little bit of a greed on the seller and listing agent's part.
Right.
Buyer exhaustion too.
Yep.
I think.
Do you think that the buyer's agent of 3 months ago is having the same challenges that they're having today? Or do you think that competitiveness has come down a little bit?
It's all litigation, right?
I don't think there's been a change in competitiveness. Here's the thing that I keep seeing when I look at the stats, right, of the closed transactions. 50% of every transaction, all the transactions are not sold over asking price. As much as we want to focus on multiple offers and the high demand, 50% of the transactions are not that, right? So I think that buyers agents are getting crafty with what they take buyers to go see, and they're having smart consultative conversations with them, saying to them, look, if you can't go 5% over asking price on this house, then you might as well not even offer, right? Let's just move on to something else.
Right.
Because you can't just keep 5, 6, 7 times keep going ahead with a buyer beating their head up against the wall if you're not getting any traction. So yeah. I think the agents' conversations are getting smarter.
I agree, and I'm looking for the hope in this conversation, right? So if I've got buyers that want to buy a house, and we've got some articles we're going to dive into here in a little bit, talks about this, but if I've got buyers that want to buy a house and it's just a really difficult time to navigate, maybe I'm a first-time home buyer, don't have parents or somebody that can fund the deal. Is there going to be a window of time? And I'm asking a crystal ball question here, but is there going to be a window of time, maybe September, October, that I might actually have a shot? Or do we think the demand's going to stay so hot that I'm just out of the market for a year?
I think there's a middle ground. I think there's a middle ground in there, which is, I think, and what I'm seeing is more and more buyers are attaching themselves to some of the home buyer programs like Homeward or like Ribbon, where they're being able to make cash offers and then going back and refinancing.
Yeah. So for somebody that doesn't know, what is that? How do you get creative like a Homeward?
Yeah, well, obviously Homeward, we signed a Heart of Atlanta exclusive with Tom Heil, who is one of the top agents in all of Keller Williams. And it's basically funding the cash to purchase a house. So for two purposes. One, now you can make a cash offer instead of an FHA offer, or instead of an offer that's not 90% LTV or something like that. It makes you a stronger buyer. Or if for those people who are on the fence and like, I don't want to sell until I find something to buy, it's a mechanism to go ahead and buy that house, then sell your house, and then refinance back out of it. So it's a cash offer opportunity for first-time home buyers.
Yeah. So here's one of my fears that's happening right now. I think there are buyers agents that are just flat turning buyers away because of the conditions of the market. And what I would want people to hear, and I'd make a bold prediction around, is one is you need to understand your creative ways of buying a house. Two, Rick made mention of it, 50% of the houses aren't selling for over asking price, which should be good news in that conversation. But my bold prediction is when the market turns seasonality at the end of this year, or after into third and fourth quarter, I think there's going to be a window of time in there you can play catch up with some of those buyers. I don't have anything data to back it up. I'm telling you, it's just a feeling from being in the industry for 20 years. There will be a natural slowdown come September, October, November, that you might be able to pick up some of those buyers and fill your pipeline for those months, right? If you just hold on to them and say, hey, sign a 3-month extension to get through the summer, and we'll find you something as soon as this blazing hot, crazy real estate season cools off just a little bit.
Yeah, I think that could be true. I mean, I buy into some of that hope. Yeah. And it also gives buyers agents the time to retrench with those buyers and say, look, we're not winning. We need to get you pre-underwritten. We need to get it into a smart plan with the lender so that you're fully underwritten before we even make an offer. We need to look at your cash on hand because you may need to buy this as is, or we may need to offer an appraisal. So it gives us time to modify our relationship and our discussion with those buyers and kind of retool our toolbox with things that we can come back in the fall and be more competitive with.
Yeah. Let's look at some numbers, gentlemen. So here's the last 7 days. And then last Monday, we didn't have a stats or an update call. So I tracked the numbers on Tuesday, but you can kind of get the gist here. We took 1158 listings in the FMLS. We put 1,258 pending, which is pretty even number for what went on, came off from a contract standpoint, and closings spiked 1,677. The week before was 1,231. We haven't had a week that high for a couple weeks now. But here's really the story. If you start to look at this, I like to look at the relationship between the blue and the yellow line. And when the blue line crosses the yellow line, it tells me we're building some inventory up. But the further it gets away or below the yellow line tells me the inventory is really starting to tighten, right? From a relationship between closed and new listings. However, a week ago, we were starting to get really close to where we might have had a breath of fresh air around inventory. And all of a sudden this week, boom, there we go. We're selling out the inventory again, right? So it doesn't look like there's any great news around inventory coming anytime soon. However, I think what's interesting is the amount of houses going under contract looks almost like what a straight line might look like. For the last couple months, every week we're starting to put the same amount of houses under contract, which looks anywhere, if you look up here at the top, 500, 400, 470, 460, 420, 533, 461. The volume of houses going under contract every week seems to be pretty close to a straight line, which I think is a little bit of an anomaly. What do you guys think?
I don't know what to make of that.
Yeah.
I think you have the consistent numbers here. I think also specific to that, the gap that jumped again last week with new listings and closed. I think we do have to factor that week and specifically was graduation week. So you had all these sellers who set their own terms and said closing date's got to be first week of June, right? We're not moving out until our kids graduate. And I think that I do believe that a large part of that jump in the massive closings is people who were staying in their homes until their kids graduated, and then they were moving.
Yeah.
And I believe those were probably dictated by sellers' terms of what they're willing to accept.
Right. Well, I think it's just an awareness factor. It's not like it's literally, we're keeping our strategy and our focus on inventory. And there's no good news coming around inventory outside of grow your skill set around how to navigate it, right? We're not getting a breath of fresh air, as Rick mentioned, around demand, or I'm calling inventory, or shortage of inventory at that. So just keeping our eye on it. We're not seeing it build right now. We're actually seeing it tighten. In the residential lease space, no news here. It's a pretty straight line, no spikes, no jumps around closed leases or new leases hitting the market. Here's where I'd like to go with this though, guys. There's an article on Market Watch. If you don't know what Market Watch is, it's kind of one of the leading investing type websites. And this article was published on today. It says most Americans think it's a bad time to buy a house, but there's one reason why they're still willing to take the plunge. Do you think people think it's a bad time to buy a house?
No, not anybody I'm talking to. I don't know where he's getting his data from, but
yeah, I mean, for months I've been saying that we're in this very unique convergence of best time ever to sell your house, but an amazing time to buy a house.
I agree.
You know, minor things. For example, I'm refinancing 2 investment properties, and I'm dropping them a point, and it's saving me. I mean, these loans are $170,000. It's saving me $200 to $300 each.
Yeah.
The converse of that means if rates go up 1%, and I'm buying, now these are properties I've owned a long time, so the balance aren't big. But if I'm taking a $170,000 loan, I'm probably in a category where $200 to $300 a month is a big difference to me.
Yeah.
And so why would you not take advantage of rates being as low as they are? I mean, 1% rise in rates is the equivalent of 10% rise in pricing, right?
Yeah. And I think your point exactly, Sean, is whether he's saying this title's a little bit of a clickbait on the article, I'm sure. But the one reason is interest rates. Yep. The cost of money right now is next to nothing. And but we talk about a lot on this industry update about consumer confidence. But consumer confidence is not a confidence factor around buying a house. It's around the confidence factor of their position in the economy. So do I think some Americans may think it's a bad time to buy a house? Yeah, if they don't meet the criteria of what Rick was talking about earlier of having the ability to navigate a competitive real estate market right now. If they were your typical buyer that was going to ink into a house at a minimum down, minimum cash to close, it's not a favorable market for them, but there's still ways to succeed that way. Outside of those factors, it's a great time to buy a house right now. And
I'd love to hear from some of
I'd
love to hear from some of the folks on the call on the chat page. Maybe just throw in what your experience is with your buyers right now. Are you seeing hesitancy, or are they recognizing that it's a good time to buy? If you have time to throw something in the chat, I'd like to see that.
Yep. And I just get irritated when somebody posts an article like this.
Right.
But I realize in the news media world, there's a little bit of clickbait going on, and you got to understand what's going on behind it. The other thing is the Atlanta Business Journal keeps talking about how hot the real estate market is right now. I thought this was interesting. National prices have increased almost 16% on a year-over-year basis. I think we're actually seeing some pockets in Atlanta that are much higher than this right now.
Yeah, the latest chart masters for June, looking at up through May, the year-over-year price was 20% over last May for single-family homes.
Yeah. So, Rick, I'm going to ask you a loaded question, but does that lead to a bubble?
I get to ask this question all the time, and my answer is no, because the bubble that we experienced earlier in 2000s and in 2007, 8, 9, there were some fundamental foundational problems with the mortgage lending institutions that has been fixed, and that you don't have those underlying things of fraud that really helped cause the bubble bursting back then. I don't think we have those foundational issues right now, and I don't think this is a bubble. I think this is purely and simply supply and demand, and it will work itself out.
Yeah. And do
you guys realize that DeKalb
ahead.
County was, I actually believe it was the #1 county in the nation in mortgage fraud in 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
And that's what was leading. So if we have a bubble, you know, you only lose money when you have to sell when the market's down, right? If you don't have to sell, that's not going to be a big factor. And so many people have so much equity in their house right now. It's not 2008. It's not when all of a sudden houses were worth $100,000 less.
Yeah. Yeah. And
there's a difference between a bubble and a shift. So there's going to be a shift, though. Affordability is the question mark, you know, around interest rates and rate. You know, houses have appreciated so fast. At some point, it's going to level off, and it's got to give a little back. You can't. 10% annual appreciation is not sustainable, and it's supported by interest rates being as low as they are. That still tips the scales in affordability.
Yeah, and the other thing you have to do is follow the development. I mean, walk the belt line. You know, none of that. Everything that abuts the belt line, whether it's already developed or being developed, used to be industrial wasted space next to unused railroad tracks that is now suddenly has the highest and best use. And so, of course, I mean, prices are going to skyrocket in every one of those neighborhoods where the belt line follows.
Yep. Perfect. I wanted to point out something else. If there's no other comment on that, are you guys on the call familiar with Invest Atlanta? So Invest Atlanta is basically a resource around the economic development of the city of Atlanta. And there's a lot of great resources that they put out. And if you follow them on Twitter, they do a lot of stuff. And are you aware that June is homeownership month? And if you're not aware, you need to be aware. And two, from a marketing perspective, how do you use the fact that June's homeownership month and create talking points with the people you lead in your database? And from a marketing perspective, how do you pump that information out, right? Do you use Invest Atlanta as a resource for anything in your business, Rick or Sean?
Well, in my conversations with people that are looking and ask me this question, where's the next hot area? Where should I be investing if I have an investment portfolio? And I happen to teach this class in our market center. And so we look for the places around Atlanta where there's a convergence of public and private money. And Invest Atlanta is one of those sources that helps synergize the public side of it. And then you combine that with the private side of it, and you get these growth nodes, I call them. Yeah. I'll give you an example. What's happening in Summerhill with the city of Atlanta, Georgia State University, and Carter Development. They're coming together in public and private money and creating a really, really exciting growth node in the Summerhill area for commercial and residential properties. And so Invest Atlanta is definitely part of the conversation that I have in that class and with my investor clients who want to know what's happening. You just have to follow what they're doing, and they're usually partnering with the right people.
Yeah. And what do you do with that information though, Rick?
Well, we then look at we then dig into the home values and what's happened over time, or specifically the last 5 years there. And we can show the client, look, over the last 5 years, it's been 10% a year for 5 years in a row. This is not going to change. Once this stuff comes up out of the ground and Publix goes in next to Georgia Avenue restaurants, then the residential stuff is going to boom even further. So what I do with it is drill down deeper and equate it to residential value.
Yeah. And Sean, you know, you coach agents all day long, and you're coaching them to be the local expert, right? This is a little bit of that fiduciary of being in the know and being the local expert, right?
Yeah.
And whether right now, I mean, just off the top of my head, as Rick was talking, I was thinking, okay, there's a lot going on in College Park. There's a lot going on in East Atlanta. There's a lot going on in West Midtown. There's a lot of little hot spots that the economic development of Atlanta would give you some information if you're looking for the next up and coming whatever, right? So I thought it was a great resource. I just wanted to bring it to the call today. The only other thing I had for the call was there's a really cool article on Inman today by the CEO of our company. And Carl Liebert was talking about obviously his take on the real estate industry and the pandemic. But he was talking about how he dodged the question and said yes, kind of all in the same sentence. But is Keller Williams going to go public? And he says, I think what's really important is this is something Gary and I spend a lot of time talking about. And we're preparing for optionality, which is his word he uses about 10 times in here, and how we think about our future. Gary put us on the path to be a tech company and to build technology platform for our agents and their homeowners. And then they're looking at it from a structure, from a capitalization perspective. I think that's exciting to be a part of this company. If in the next couple of months, we start to move in a direction of some kind of public offering. And he's not saying no nor yes, because he can't commit until things are announced, but it's all over Inman today. And I thought it was an interesting thing. Did you guys get a chance to read that article?
Yeah, I did. You know,
what was your take?
Well, it was really fascinating because he's using some words I've never heard before, like optionality, which is really a cool word.
I was feeling a little dumb there for a minute, Rick. I was like,
yeah,
is that an SAT word? I forgot to study.
I know. But I think there was another word in this article. It may have been another one, but I think it was this one where he said we're headed towards a new abnormality, right? You know, we talk about going back to what's the new normal, and I don't think there is a new normal. I think there's a new abnormal. I think the next couple of years, we're going to be living in an abnormal environment in our industry, and we better get used to it.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to go back to a phrase I use quite a bit, which is be a skills-based agent. You know, it's hard to fathom, if you haven't been in the real estate industry for a number of years, that there was a period of time where your skills really didn't matter. You could pop a postcard in the mail and people would buy and sell houses from you. And you would show up to a listing and they were all just come list me, and you didn't have to do a great presentation and all that stuff. And fortunately and unfortunately, that's the market I started selling real estate in 1999. Literally remember putting a newsletter in the mail and a lady called me to come list her house, you know, and I didn't know a thing about it at the time. However, the sweet spot is this skill set, a skills-based agent, where you're a professional, you grow your skill set and you become good at your craft. And the market we're in demands it right now. I think what Rick, you're saying is it's going to be that way for a while, right? And you know, one of the best things about our company, and I know a couple of our team leaders are on this call that can back me up, is we had the ability to grow you from wherever you're at to wherever you need to go around those skill sets. We just need you to engage us, right? And we can teach you how to price. We can teach you how to coach, train, script with your buyers and sellers in any market. It's just a matter of developing those skill sets, right?
Yeah. And some of those skill sets are the things that have worked since 1999 or beyond. Things like, you know, people are still change, their home situation is changing every 5 to 7 years, right? And so over the last month, I've had a number of phone calls of people, clients of mine that I've stayed in contact with that transacted in 2016 and 2017. What a surprise. They want to move to a different house. So as much as things are changing, they're staying the same on that 5 to 7 year cycle. And if we can slice and dice our database, like the fundamental things that the reg book teaches, though, you know, we're going to be able to do more business in an abnormal environment. If we're looking for listings, we should be talking to the people we transacted with in 2016 or 2017 and know that they've had 2 children and they need something different, right? And we need to contact them. So
Yep.
those fundamental things I don't think are going to change at all.
Yeah. And ultimately, that's our real motive in doing these industry updates, is to bring the conversations and the topics to encourage the Heart of Atlanta agents to move into becoming skills-based agents so you can go make some more money, right?
Yep.
Any questions? Any questions for the expert panel? Stump them. We used to do a saying, stump the chump, but I don't want to call these guys chumps, so.
But I just wanted
worse.
to jump in and
Yeah,
share
Mark.
that. Hey, I just want to jump in and share that I love what Rick was saying about, like, we need to be talking to our past clients from 2016, 2018, 2017. But I think right now there's been so much appreciation in the past 2.5 years that even people that bought in 2020, early 2020 and all of 2019 probably have some equity in their home. And if they didn't like living there after 2 years, usually you can't sell and make your money back. Now they probably can sell, make their money back, and even make a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I think it's worth talking to every single seller, potential seller out there.
Or how many people bought houses pre-COVID that's lifestyle has been reevaluated?
Yep.
Right. Even if it was like 2018 to 2019, right before COVID hit, a lot of people reevaluated their lifestyle and what they want to do. So,
They don't work where they used to work. They don't, have to travel now, whatever it is.
Yep.
Yeah. Agreed.
There you go. Let's see.
one last thought, Brett, that we were talking about the IPO article with Carl, and we've talked about this since last October when they created HOX,
Yeah.
I took them to call it, KWX, but think of the power. What would it be like for one of these real estate companies? Because there's a lot of people going public. I believe we're the only one that's privately funded and profitable.
Yeah.
How much are you going to raise, and what are you going to be able to do with that?
Yeah. I think that's can you imagine the conversations going on behind closed doors right now?
I'd love to be in the room.
Absolutely. But nonetheless, I think wealth building, and Rick's on the call in his car, and he teaches a lot of wealth building, and we do lots of interviews around people in wealth building, and stock market's a piece of it, but real estate's always the biggest power player in building wealth. And nonetheless, it doesn't change the conversation, it just makes it interesting, right?
Yep.
All right, gentlemen, I enjoyed it. Thank you guys for tuning in for Industry Update. See you next week.
See you guys.
We need some women on here.